Yesterday, I put a Facebook post, and I'm just going to read it. It says, Monday photo contest. In the comment section, take a photo of a legume, a bean or a peanut, and I'm going to take the first 5 entries and critique them for my YouTube channel. The best photo wins $25. The first 5 entries before midnight are eligible. 1 photo per person. Must be an unedited photo you took yourself. You will need to be subscribed to my YouTube channel to win. So if you're not subscribed, make sure you go ahead and subscribe right now. And the judging criteria is based on what I taught on my last workshop. I taught one last Saturday, and I talked about the 6 elements of a photo that can lead it to be a great image. And I used the acronym SPEATS, which stand for S, which is the subject, P is the purpose. Now for today's competition, we're not going to judge on the purpose, because the purpose of this was to apply for a photo contest, so I'm not going to score on that. E is for emotion, A is the artistry, T technicality, and S for the story. So let's go ahead and jump right into it and take a look at the contestants. This is our first entry. This was from Christopher Bernard. This is a boiled peanuts. So the subject is a picture of a picture. It would have been nice if he actually took the boiled peanuts out of the can. So what I'm looking at is a can of peanuts. So I'm going to give him a 2 for the subject. For the emotion, it's going to get 1. It doesn't really provide much emotion from the photo. We're not trying to judge on its ability to be in a museum when you hear artistry. Again, those are the other things that are very difficult to judge, but I'm going to be doing it from a point of things like composition, for instance. With this photo, I'm going to go ahead and turn on the grid lines. I noticed that this line up here is parallel, but this one is at an angle. That drives me insane a little bit. It would have been nice if this was framed up a little bit straighter. If you notice, there's a little section right here to the right. It's a little bit of a distracting element. I would have cropped that out or kept that out. Again, I asked them to keep them unedited photos, but these are things that you can do in camera. So for instance, if I was framing it and it looked more like this, that's a little bit more pleasing to the eye. It's a straight on shot in the center. And I would have tilted the camera just a smidge. So it looks like he probably used a cell phone camera. So instead of taking photos down, you can actually take the photos dead on, or even like this, to give a little bit of something a little bit more dynamic. But again, for the artistry, I'm going to give it a 3 because again, it looks like he did that intentionally. We talk about T for technicality. We're going to talk about things about lighting. We're going to talk about is it in focus or not? These are objective truths that we can measure. Is the white balance accurate? In other words, are the colors accurate? It looks like the colors are pretty accurate. What looks to be white is white. In some cases, depending on the kind of lighting you may have, some rooms may make your photos look a little bit more yellowish, depending on the type of light you use. This one might be too blue. Again, I'm using this software to play with it, but it looks like he got the colors pretty accurate. So for the technical standpoint, I'm going to give it a 3. And from the story point of view, it literally says it's boiled peanuts. It's a can of boiled peanuts on a countertop. There's not much more of a story that you can tell with that. So I'm going to give that a 2, giving Christopher a score of 8. All right, let's move on. Moving on, entry number 3. This is from Ruby. The subject, it's very clear that the subjects are beans, and there are several beans. There's nothing else that distracts from those elements. I'm going to go ahead and give that a 3 for the subject. For the emotion, I'm going to give it a 1. There's not much emotion, and you can't really do too much with emotion. I put that as a 1. It doesn't induce an emotion. It doesn't, convey any type of emotion. And for artistry, I'm going to give this a 2. It looks like the beans were just kind of placed onto a table. But I do like the fact that there's no other distracting elements in there that takes away from the photo. I would say maybe this bean right here to the left, we probably could have used less of that, because that does take away from the repetition of the other beans in the photo. And from the technicals, so artistry 3. I'll give that. For the technical standpoint, now it looks like the focus is a little soft on the beans towards the back. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it doesn't draw my eye towards any particular bean, which is what you want to do if you're using depth of field. It looks like this glass table as well, but the colors, I'm not sure if they're as accurate as they could be. So technicality, I gave it a 3. And story, I also gave it a 3. It's just basically beans on a table. That's the story that you have there. This one was sent in by Tree. He actually attended my workshop, so I understand what he was trying to do here. So let's go through what he was trying to do. So for subject, I'm going to give this a 4. Now, we talked about subject. In the workshop, I said you want to pay a little bit more attention to what the subject is. He obviously took some effort and some time to put this together, which I do appreciate. And that's what I say. If you're going to take a photo, don't just pull your cell phone out and take a photo. Make sure the subject looks good. This looks presentable. I would say that there's some areas like this area here, my OCD is throwing my OCD off. I would have fixed this one and the one over here because it kind of takes away from the circle. So if you're going to do an intentional shot like that, you want to make sure that those things don't distract. If this was lined up perfectly, then that would have easily got a 5. For the emotion, I gave a 4. For the emotion category, I asked that you either convey an emotion or induce an emotion. So this obviously conveys happiness. It's a smiley face, and it definitely induced it, because when I first saw it, I started laughing out loud. Because I knew what he was trying to do. So it induced an emotion out of me, which was some type of reaction from the viewer. So you accomplished that, Tree. Good job there. So you get a 4 for emotion. Artistry, I gave a 3. The composition, he had it almost center, but it wasn't quite centered. So if let's throw the grid lines on here. Well, it's almost if these eyes were slightly higher to keep it more centered. Again, I don't even use a lot of centered shots, but because of the nature of the shape, I would have said keep this a little bit centered. Story, I gave this a 3. The beans and the peanuts. So he really went all out. He got both beans and peanuts. Moving on to Jessica's photo. I absolutely love this photo. She says, look, I'm going to applaud the fact that I somewhat tried to stick to the rule of thirds, even if I'm not great at fractions. And the shadow was intentional. Feel his melancholy. Melancholy means kind of, it's a synonym for sadness and depression. So when there's a melancholic person, they're usually like sad and depressed for no apparent reason. So that's what melancholy is. And I love the fact that she said the shadow was intentional. The word of the day yesterday for our workshop was intentional. So if you're gonna take an image, be intentional with it. Don't just pull up your phone and snap a photo. Actually take the time to compose a shot, take it, and make sure all the other elements support the beauty of the image. So for this, the subject, I gave a 4. She took the time to turn this bean around so that these little marks can show. It would be a different photo if it was all a red color. It would be a completely different image. For emotion, I gave a 4. It's so interesting how you can draw emotion from a bean. But you know, when you see a picture of a bean, they're usually surrounded with other beans, and this one is sitting by itself. And that loneliness is emphasized by all of this negative space. There's nothing else in the frame, so our eyes naturally draw to this. And she said that the shadow was intentional, which tells me she might have moved a desk lamp or something to create that, and I really applaud that. So I absolutely love the emotion and the artistry in this. For the artistry, I gave it a 4. I would have given it a 5 if this horizon line was straight, but that kind of distracts my eye. It takes a little bit away from the image. And again, I asked for unedited photos. If I were to have edited, I would have got that horizon line. Let me see if I can do this. I would have had the horizon line parallel. That's one. And when she talks about the rule of thirds, what that means is I'm going to divide an image into 3 sections. So I have 3 columns. Here's 1, 2, and 3, and 3 rows. 1, 2, and 3. And the goal of using the rule of thirds means that you want to place your subject at one of these intersecting lines. All right. So if I wanted to apply that here, let's see if I can do that. Now, here's the thing. The subject is on this intersecting line, but this horizon line, I also want to try to keep it around there as well. Let's see if I can kind of fine tune this a little bit. All right, we're just going to go with that. So now this bean falls on the lower section of this intersecting area, and the horizon is placed on this line. Quick tips for landscape photographers. This is really good to use if you're taking a picture of, let's say for instance, a beach. You have to ask yourself which is more interesting. Is the sky more interesting or is the beach more interesting? If the beach is more interesting, you might want to use the lower 2/3. If the sky is interesting, use the top 2/3 for the sky and the bottom section for the beach. And that's how you kind of create a really beautiful image using the rule of thirds, again, if you're doing landscape shots. This is an absolutely brilliant image. So Jessica, you get a score of 21. All right, moving on. Now Yam, the contractor, my electrical cousin, put in another entry, and he asks, he says, red bean bun, does that count? It could count. The only issue I have here is I can't really see a bean. I don't see a bean. You could tell me that it's a red bean, but if you had to explain the photo, then it's probably not doing its job. You want to be able to try to tell the story of the photo without having to explain it. So if I were to crop that image, okay, well now where does my eye go? Like this little hot dog, is it going here? That's my first thing. Is it the bun? Is it? I don't know what I'm looking at. If I cropped it in kind of like this and used as an advertisement to sell bread, now it looks like, okay, this is an advertisement to sell bread. The shininess from the light induces some sort of hunger, so that'll induce some type of emotion from me, so you can get higher points for hunger. So for the subject, I gave it a 1 because I don't see the beans. For the emotion, I gave it a 2 because it did induce some type of hunger from me, because I looked at it, I was like, wow, it looks like Sheila Bakery and I want to go eat. Artistry, I gave it a 2 because not a lot of thought was taken into consideration for composition. For technicality, I gave it a 2. It looked like a cell phone photo to me. And for the story, I also gave it a 2. It's just not much there. And let's move on to the last, which is from Tamar. Again, wow, I really love this image. She uses the principle of foreground, middle ground, background. So in the well, we're going to get there. That's part of composition. Let's talk about the subject first. The subject is clearly these peanuts. And that's what's emphasized. I think this jar could have been cleaned up a little bit. Either way, our eyes are drawn towards the peanuts, and that's what the subject is about. Like, we could have kept this thing a little bit cleaner. You can only do so much. That would be a really intentional photo, because peanut jars are typically littered with salt. But for the subject, I think she nailed it. So I gave this a 5 for the subject. For emotional, I gave it a 3. I forgot exactly why I gave it a 3. I gave it a 3. I'm just gonna move on to the artistry. The artistry I gave 4. I gave a 4 because the concept of, look at this, there's foreground, which is these spilled peanuts on the counter, the middle ground, which is what she wants us to look at, and then the background being these grapes. I think the grapes were really distracting because I don't think they go well with peanuts. I also discussed this in my workshop, that the elements in the photo should also support the main subject. So if the subject is supposed to be the peanuts, this should be something that goes better with peanuts. I don't know if there's anyone who actually eats grapes with peanuts. I think maybe something like chocolate. If there was a stack of chocolate bars, that would make a little bit more sense to me, or cookies. To go with the peanuts. I had to deduct points for the grapes because that was really distracting to me. It provides some color, but I do like this photo. From the technical standpoint, I gave it a 4. I don't think this was done with a cell phone. It looks like a camera, maybe with a 51.8 lens, because I noticed there's a very, very shallow depth of field. Shallow depth of field means its focal plane is really tight, right where this opening of the jar was, but you can see the bokeh, or the blurry effect, here in the foreground as well as the background. But again, that's a very tight focal plane, so I'm thinking a 1.8 lens was used on this with a camera other than that of a cell phone. Tamara, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but either way, great photo. So you got a score of 20, which means the winner of the $25 is Jessica, and her image of the melancholic bean. Oh yeah, feel his melancholy. I absolutely love this image. So congratulations, Jessica. Hopefully you're subscribed to my YouTube channel. Make sure you message me and we'll get all of that squared away. Congratulations, Jessica. This video was a lot of work to put together. This is actually the second time I filmed it. We'll see if I want to keep going with this. Let me know if there's any ideas that you have. So write in the comments what topics that you would like to see, and maybe we can use that for a future photo contest. Thanks again. Make sure you subscribe to Virak Studio on YouTube. Thank you. Bye.